My name is James Sullivan, but I may have more of a following under the name of JP Diamond, the host of the hottest little rock and roll show in the world. It's a podcast called Hot Tracks with JP Diamond. It's on jprockin.com and wherever you get your podcast. I had to get that a little bit.
Yeah, no, hey, that's what it's for, brother.
We start off on SoundCloud. We're on Stitcher, iTunes, Apple Podcast, everywhere you can be free, I'm there, but that's wherever you find your podcast. And then I also host another podcast on a local radio station, WLRM, Vintage Rock 106.9. Do the JP Diamond's Dark Side on there. It airs every Saturday night at 10 p.m. I started doing that this year. So that's not one but two podcasts. And we're doing a series on Pink Floyd. Right now we're doing the longest podcast I've ever recorded. It's Pink Floyd's Pulse album. It's a 2.5 hour live album. It is the longest show ever. And so I was talking to Josh about doing a production on that. I was shocked that it went up, but it did. So it airs every Saturday night, and we got one more show to do for the year on that. We're wrapping it up with Pink Floyd's The Wall coming up. We play the album in its entirety, uninterrupted. And so a lot of people are enjoying that. So that's on Vintage Rock 106.9. There, David Brown runs that out of Brighton.
Okay.
And it is a local radio station there. And then I've been working for USA Championship Wrestling and Tennessee Championship Wrestling as a professional wrestling manager.
Sweet. So we've had some of those guys on. We've had some of the Tennessee wrestling guys on. I'm a big wrestling fan, so I don't know if you noticed from my collection of stuff. We had Jerry Lawler on before, and so yeah. I guess I realized that you were doing that much on the DJ side. How long have you been doing that?
I must like to say I've been doing podcasting before podcasting was cool.
Yeah.
I started Hot Tracks about 20 years ago.
Okay.
And it's been a steady, it's been a hobby. It's always been a hobby.
Is it mostly classic rock, vintage stuff?
We go a little bit of everywhere. It just depends on what kind of mood I wake up in that day. It just my intent is to play whatever is kind of like you never know. Hot Tracks, you never know what you're going to get. It's one of my tags because you just don't know. I like to be country, rock, pop. It just depends. My thing is, as long as it flows and as long as the music has a flow and it's got a good hook. It makes the music more to you. I catch myself these days. I say I like to play more songs. I catch you singing, and that's the greatest thing you can do. You catch somebody you listening to the song and they're singing, they're not going to turn it off.
Yeah.
So that's the greatest thing. But I have more fun just creating the atmosphere of having the show has made. If it wasn't for the show, I wouldn't be doing any of the wrestling stuff. The show led to the wrestling. And a friend of mine asked a friend of mine many years ago. He was a professional wrestler. He's Bubba Payne. And I was like, hey man, let me be your manager. And he was finally, after I compare myself to that little dog that pounces around the big dog. Hey. That was me. He finally said, okay. And I was like, cool. So next thing you know, JP Diamond was born. And we was wrestling mainly up in Dyersburg for years. Went up there. There's people that have no idea who I am, hate me for silly string, spraying them with silly string, which was awesome.
Were you more a heel?
Always. Okay. Pretty much, they twinked. I was about to say they were heel face. It went back and forth, but 90% of the time we were heel. And but pretty much it just however it works out. Most of the time managers are heel. I had a friend of mine tell me he's wrestler manager. He always tell me if for a face to have a manager, it's more like a cheerleader, and nobody really wants a cheerleader. So it's like once you kind of keep that in perspective, like you just pretty much have to be heel. But you do whatever. Bert Prentice, bless his heart, he was running a show up here in Covington a few years back. It was like a fundraiser for the girls softball team at Covington High School. And I saw it on Tipton County Buzz. And I was just like, So I just put out there, I said, who's running this? And somebody told me back Bert Prentice. I was like, oh, okay. So I messaged him, like, hey, I used to be a manager. Basically I was trying to get, my grandkids have never seen me work. I got 3 grandbabies and none of them ever seen me. Heard the stories, they've seen pictures, because back in them, you had the big old cameras, you really didn't carry them. It's not as easy as it is now.
Yeah.
So it was like they've never seen me work. I was like, one of my grandkids sing work. I was like, I got a podcast. I can help promote the song. I mean, promote the show in the area. He was like, didn't reply. I was like, man. So I took my grandkids to the show that night up here. And Bert was, he was running the show. Didn't want to bother him. He was just consistently just, it was just a circus. But he was, it was like, pandemonium. But he was running it. He was running the show. So I didn't want to bother him that night. So the next week, like Tuesday or so, I get a message and he's like, "Why didn't I see this?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know why you didn't see this." And he's like, "I never check Messenger." So he gave me his phone number. It's probably one of just a couple conversations. Everything else we ever did was through text. And I was like, "Yeah, story, podcast, kids, blah." So, well, if you sell me some tickets, I can put you on the show. I was like, "Okay." So he sent me this poster of they were running a show in Millington the very next weekend at the National Guard Armory over on Navy. And I was just like, oh my God. To me, this was like a WrestleMania moment for me because I had been out for so many years and here I am like, okay. So I instantly had selling tickets, of course, and I did some little promos and stuff. But then one day, he sent me a poster while I was at work. And I was on the poster. They took Jerry Lawler off the poster and put a big ugly picture of J.P. Diamond on the poster. And I was just like, oh my. I was like, so I'm like in my office at home, I have a poster and everybody signed that poster that night. I was like, please sign this. And it's like, everybody's kind of looking at me nuts. I was like, yeah, I'm a Mark. I was like, yeah, just sign it. It was like, so that's what started. And then, so in my mind, I was already counting down to the Covington show for the next year.